different. As you know, here on Nigeria Info FM, one of our goals is to make sure that you hear from the people who are making the policies and having the discussions that affect you. And by that, I mean the people in both the public and private sector, both within Nigeria and outside. And when it comes to impact on Nigeria, a few nations have as much impact as the largest economy on earth, the United States of America. So today, we have in the studio the recently appointed Consul General of the U.S. Consul General in Lagos, giving her first ever interview in Nigeria. Claire Pierangelo, good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I
Aghogho
appreciate it.
had to leave his meeting to join in on this conversation.
If it's her first time in the country as well as the continent, and a first interview, I thought it would just be fantastic to give her the shakumaku, welcome into the country. And of course, into 99.3 Nigeria Info. Very welcome, Claire Pierangelo.
I have to say welcome to Nigeria as well before we begin. She's began her Lagos posting in August 2019. So have you had jollof rice yet?
I have.
Did you like it?
I did.
Okay. It wasn't too peppery. It wasn't too spicy.
No, listen, as I was saying earlier, I've been all around the world and I've eaten a lot of very interesting things, some of which I don't hope to repeat again. But jollof rice was something that I think that I can eat on a regular basis.
Yes.
I'm hoping to be introduced to a lot of your specialties, and I count on our friends in Nigeria to make suggestions. Don't sneak the spicy stuff on me. Give me a warning. But I do hope to be able to taste different dishes all over the nation, and so I do look forward to good suggestions from people about what are their favorites and what should I try first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my favorite is abacha, but it's not very good in Lagos, so I'll have to take you to Enugu for that.
Okay. That's great.
You don't want to know what my favorite is.
What motivated you to become a diplomat?
Well, that's a really good question. It was way back in the old days when we were still in the Cold War, and the prospect of working towards peace was a really attractive one. I went to graduate school at Johns Hopkins University out of Washington, D.C., and I spent many years in Europe studying and working. And so it was a time when the tensions between the two countries, between the United States and the Soviet Union, were so high, and there were so many people trying to make sure that we didn't go to a hot war from the Cold War.
I like that.
Well, it just
hot
it,
war
a
from
hot
the
war.
Cold
It
War.
was. People forget how close we got many times. And so it was a period of time when you looked around and you said, I could be of service to my country, but not just to my country. I can be of service to the world by helping make sure that my country is out there making the right choices, helping negotiate the right deals, having the right sorts of relationships. And that's what I've been doing for the last 25 plus years.
So for 25 years, you've been around, like they say, around the world.
Around the world.
So give us some insight into the countries you've served as a diplomat for the United States.
Okay. Well, I think one of my favorite postings was actually in Haiti. Was one of my earlier postings.
It's a beautiful country.
It's a beautiful country with a beautiful people who don't deserve the hard lot they've had in life because they work hard, they have good hearts, but they've had a difficult time with difficult, governments over the years. And I loved it for its culture. Interestingly enough, you feel very at home in West Africa.
Yeah, it's very
having
similar.
served in Haiti. It's very similar. A lot of their cultural and ethnic heritage is from this part of the world.
Yes.
Igbo and Yoruba especially.
Yes.
So there's a real strong kind of cultural connection between the
Yes,
two.
it is. Yeah.
To say bien, huh?
Tu sais bien. Mes amis, ça passe.
Look at that.
But it was also an opportunity again to help a country try to advance. We maybe had less success than we would have liked to, but helping Haiti after the dictatorship of the Duvaliers, trying to find democracy, trying to find economic development, trying to find its place in the world, was a real challenge and a real honor for me to try to do. And it's a country I still try to keep an eye on today.
I'm curious how the U.S. prepares diplomats to serve in a new and different place for the first time.
Well, we have actually something called the Foreign Service Institute. We run our own, essentially, university where we teach languages and we teach area study courses and we teach functional courses. So, for example, before going to Haiti, I spent time learning French and Haitian Creole, and I spent a lot of time studying the country, the history, the politics, the people. And so that's what we'll tend to do for pretty much every country that we go to. Other places where I've served overseas is I've served for many years in Italy, where I again worked on economic and trade issues, energy issues. So energy is one of my sub-interests. So coming to Nigeria, where energy is such a big part of your existence, your economy, the realities of this country. I feel quite at home with that. And then I've served twice in Vietnam, and I've served in Indonesia. And in every of those cases, learning the language, learning the culture, learning the history was a big part of the preparation for it. This is the first country in a long time where I didn't have to learn a language to go.
Haitian Creole works very well here.
Well, we'll try it. We'll try it. So.
You mentioned Vietnam, and I think about the relationship between the United States and Vietnam after the war in the 60s, and Frosty best describes what happened after that war. And when you say, for example, you keep touch with what is happening in countries where you, for example, had issues with the United States in terms of diplomatic standoff, how does that help you as a foreign service officer?
Well, I think it's if you are making the kinds of relationships and bonds when you're in a country that you should be, that's something that you carry with you, whether through personal relationships or business relationships. I was lucky to serve in Vietnam the first time right after we reestablished relations. So again, sort of that being there at the creation, understanding how to bring a relationship between a country from enemies to friends to partners where we are today. I mean, a great honor. And then I went back in the late 2000s to continue that work. But in every post that I have served, in every mission I have served, to this day, I have friends either in the mission or in the country. What that tells me is that I did my job well, because I created real relationships and real connections with people, which is really what my government pays me to do.
I wonder if it's different for women in the foreign service. Have you encountered any difficulties or pressures that are different from what your male counterparts experience?
I think there are a lot of differences. There are fewer now than they were when I started. First, just numerically, we have a lot more women in the foreign service than we used to. When I came in, we were maybe 20 to 30% of the foreign service coming in. Now we're well over 50% in some classes. So I think the percentage of women, but we still struggled with having very few women at high levels as mentors, career mentors, people who could bring you up. And everywhere you are, whether you're in the government or you're in a company, there's what we call the old boys network. And it doesn't have to be an old boys network, but it's just a fact that people like to be around people like themselves. And so when you are the outlier, it's a little bit more difficult to break into those things. But I think what has happened over the years is women who came in at the same time I did, we came in with a very specific idea that we were going to help make it easier for the women who came behind us and make sure that there was mentorship and paths and that they were getting the opportunities that they should. At the end of the day, the reality is, in the old days, men had wives who stayed home and took care of the house so they could work 16 hours, 20 hours a day and get ahead that way. Now women are in, maybe their husbands are not working, maybe they are working. It's a different kind of an environment. They may not be able to put in those same types of hours, but they should still have the same types of opportunities.
I should have you on the glass ceiling. It's a show that I have. It's a show where we talk about the barriers that women face in different places, the home, the workplace, politics. So I should have you on there as a glass breaker because, you're letting more women in behind you.
I'm a glass pusher.
I prefer that.
It's broken yet. We're
pushing it. So I should have you back on, really.
And I think it's not just for women. It's just increasing the diversity across the board in the Department of State. We had a reputation in the 50s and 60s of being, all white, all East Coast colleges, all male. And over the years, that's really been changing, where we have different diversity, different ethnicities, different races, different backgrounds. One of the things that I love about the U.S. Foreign Service is that we are incredibly inclusive. And we do that by not excluding people. I'll give you two little interesting facts.
Okay.
You don't even have to have a high school degree to be a U.S. diplomat.
Oh, wow.
Now, the reality is most U.S. diplomats have master's degree or higher. But if you're able to pass the written test and the oral exams, we're judging you on your merit and your talents.
I see.
And the other thing is you don't have to have a language when you come in because we'll teach you a language. And the reason we did that was in the 60s and 70s, really the only people who were well trained in language were those who had gone to private elite schools.
Yeah. I can
So if you were
imagine.
in a public school in the United States, you weren't learning foreign languages. So it put you at a real disadvantage if you had to have a language coming in. So those are two things that I think are really unique about our Foreign Service and very different than other diplomatic corps. And over the years, I think that's really helped us have this idea of bringing people in who merit being there and letting them work their way up without having to say, you can only be here if you've gone to the right university or you have the right parentage.
I should mention, by the way, that we're streaming this conversation online. So get on Facebook and get your first glimpse of the new Consul General of Lagos. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. We stream every conversation on Nigeria Info. So anytime you're hearing your radio, you can actually see your radio. Aghogho.
Yeah, Miss Pierangelo, you know, I know that I like this favorite CNN promo. They say, "This is Africa," you know, and that's exactly how when you come into the country, you say, "This is Africa," which is Nigeria, in the real sense of it, because Nigeria represents most of the real interest of the continent and aspirations, and also the expectations. And this is your first time on the continent. What are the images, the visions you have, and expectations, most importantly, as you begin your foreign service here?
Well, I fought very hard to come to Nigeria first.
Wow.
Because when you look at Africa and you look at where are the dynamic places to be, where are the countries that are working hard, where are the countries that have potential, certainly Nigeria rises to the top of the list. At the same time, it rises to the top of the list of the country that is facing a lot of challenges, both internally and externally. So as a foreign diplomat, whose job it is to create relationships and to create partnerships, I look at Nigeria and I think this is a great place to do that kind of work. We're good friends and we're good partners. We can always be better. We can increase our economic ties. We can increase our trade ties both ways. There's a lot of good work that can be done here. And the thing that really, I think, stands out with Nigeria, and anyone who knows Nigeria will say this, is it's dynamic. You come here and you feel the dynamism. You feel that it's an entrepreneurial country. You feel that it's a country that has a lot of potential, and that if just released a little bit, can really just take over Africa and take over the world. And so I think really the challenge right now, looking on the economic side, is how do we help Nigeria release that energy? You know, and I would say Nigerians don't really need much help with that. You've got some of the most savvy, most entrepreneurial folks in the world. But it's in terms of our relationship. Is there something that we could do, create stronger bonds, stronger relationships, create more opportunities that will allow Nigeria to really meet that potential?
I'm glad you've brought up trade and the economy. The U.S. no longer buys Nigerian oil, for instance, in part because of the boom in American shale oil. The U.S. has reduced aid to Nigeria. The U.S. is providing less military and strategic aid to our efforts to pacify the Northeast and the Gulf of the Guinea. In short, we're seeing a drastic reduction in America's economic and strategic input into Nigeria. So is this a sign that America does not see the relationship with Nigeria as strategic priority, as a strategic priority?
No, I don't think so at all. I think our especially on the military cooperation side, our AFRICOM is very engaged with the folks in Nigeria, looking at things that they can do. The reality is there's a lot of challenges on the continent. And they've been shifting resources to places that maybe have a more urgent need.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, I spent the last 2 years in the States doing something a little unusual.
Okay.
I was at our National Defense University. So it's our university where we teach our military and our civilian governments about national security. So I was an associate professor of national security studies. And at that school, we have many, many, many international students, including many Nigerian military. the reason we do that is to try to build those bonds at those senior levels. And I think that that's where a lot of work can be done, and I know that our embassy is looking at that, to create the relationships and have an environment where that assistance will make a difference. Because giving assistance is a two-way street. It has to be targeted, and it has to be useful, and it has to be what the country wants and needs. So that's a conversation that we're continuing to have about where can we do more cooperation, whether it's the Gulf of Guinea or whether it's on the northern border. Those discussions are underway. So I don't think it's a pullback. But things change.
And I know the Binational Commission, dating back to the Obama years and everything. But tell us in what ways you seek to deepen the relationship while you're the Consul General.
Well, first I'm going to do, I'll follow our policy guidelines from our new ambassador, who we hope will be on the ground sometime later this year. We're very looking forward to it, very experienced diplomat. Our number 2 up at the embassy in Abuja, the chargé right now, is again a very experienced diplomat who has worked in Nigeria before and knows Africa very, very well. And I think as a team, and you'll be interested to know, it's all women.
Okay, yay.
So as a team, we will work really hard to identify those areas where we can expand that relationship, whether it's on the security side, whether it's on the legal assistance side, or whether it's on the business side. We have a lot of business. Excuse me. It's my allergies kicking in.
Sorry.
We have a lot of businesses who are here and more who want to do business. So we're here to identify where are those areas of cooperation.
Sorry.
All right, so if you just joined us, hello to you, welcome. We are talking to the recently appointed Consul General of the U.S. Consulate here in Lagos. This is her very first interview in Nigeria. Her name is Claire Pierangelo, and she began her posting in August 2019. And she was just answering a few questions. And she loves jollof rice, by the way. I had to mention that part.
Thoroughly in love with the country and the atmosphere and the climate, and waiting to try a lot of Nigerian cuisine. Now the pepper, I'm thinking very much about it.
Well, your pepper really is something else. And so you do have to learn that spicy here is not the same as spicy anywhere else. So I think the answer is say not spicy, and then it'll just be a little bit spicy.
I remember going to an American restaurant and saying spicy, and I kept wondering, what is this on my plate? This is not spicy. Take it away. Now, what would you like to accomplish in your time here in Lagos?
So I think, as we were saying before, what I really want to accomplish is I want to create new relationships. My focus here in Lagos is, of course, the southern part of the country. We want to make sure that we're discussing and working with local governments, wherever they are, to help them do whatever it is they think that we can help them do. More importantly, we really want to be able to foster greater business relationships. We want to work with the state of Lagos to help overcome some of the structural impediments that there are for our businesses and Nigerian businesses. The truth is, my job is to help support American businesses. But everything we do in support of American businesses has a follow-on effect in support of Nigerian businesses. We're all driving the same roads. We're all using the same port. So anything that we can do on a bilateral basis to increase our cooperation, to assist the local government and the national government in these areas, we're more than happy and willing to discuss and consider. It's certainly been my experience in other countries that I've worked, whether it was Haiti or Vietnam or Indonesia, are working with the local government to determine where is it that we can do some value added, right? Where is it that we can bring in some expertise that you need, that you want, that you request, that you've identified. And we've worked really successfully with other countries, whether it's in customs or immigration or law enforcement or anti-terrorism. These are things we have a lot of trained people in. But really it's first identifying with the local and the national government, what is it that we can do, in what areas can we help, and then finding a partner who's really enthusiastic about doing it.
There's some sort of symbiotic relationship. You talk about America, Nigeria, Lagos, maybe New York, in terms of how busy and the live wire of the country is. But family is also very important for us here in Nigeria also too. I guess also in the United States, a lot of family interwoven relationships. So is the family here with you?
Well, I have 2 teenage boys who unfortunately they did come with me and they spent a few weeks there and were very impressed, but are actually away at school right now. So kind of my heart is breaking a little bit on that one. And they'll be back to visit on the holidays. But they are in an American boarding school in England right now. So unfortunately for me.
They love Nigeria while they're
Well,
here.
for you,
They
but
enjoyed
they're
it.
teenagers. They probably don't want to be around their parents.
Well, yeah. That's why when they call and say, "Mom, I miss my dog." I say, "Did you miss your mother?" "No, I miss my dog."
There's no American football here too.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
my oldest, the reason they're in England is my oldest is an absolute football fanatic.
Oh.
He's a U.S. Soccer Federation certified ref. He coached his little brother's team, anything to do with soccer. And so, of course, his favorite team is Liverpool.
Oh,
I hope I
okay.
don't offend anybody with that, but that's his favorite team.
You know, you use football and soccer in the same breath. So the listeners will like football,
Sorry.
soccer.
Soccer is the American term for football. So I have to get back into your term for football.
All right. I guess you round over the conversation now, Sandra.
Yes, I guess we can.
Okay.
My final question, and this is off script. Nigeria is predominantly young in population. You have two young children. These young people are currently forming their opinions about the world, and those opinions will govern how Nigerians view other countries in the next 3 or 4 decades, right? What do you want these young people to know about America and America's intention towards them?
That's an excellent question because this is an area that we've worked on for many, many years. We've always had as part in front of our efforts outreach to the youth of countries, because you're not the only country having the youth bulge. There are many countries around the world that are looking at the younger generation and thinking, how am I going to grow my economy? All right, I've got to have jobs. I've got to have education. What changes do we need to make sure that the country is responding to the youth? Because that's where all your growth is going to come from. That's where your energy is. That's who's going to lead your country in the future. And so I think, and it's the same thing in the United States, we really have to be thinking, are we doing the right policies for our youth? Are we creating an environment for them that will make them successful and lead our country in the future? A lot of our focus has always been on education. We have at the consulate, and I invite anybody who wants to come by, we have our American Center where we run programs talking about it, not only America, but also Nigeria.
Okay.
Today, I won't say his name, but we had a very famous Nigerian dance master come and talk to us to give us some, again, to give us the background and the culture of Nigeria, to educate our people internally.
Okay.
But we also run an education center where I walked in the other day and it was full of young people researching universities, doing homework, having a chance to get to know more about the United States. What I want them to know is that it is an open and friendly place. I know we all have portraits of our countries in the media and by our politicians that sometimes are portraits that we don't think adequately reflect the true values of our country. And so I want the youth of Nigeria to really understand that America is an open and caring place. And that's really at the core of our values. And that's what we try to do every day out of our work at the consulate, out of our work at the embassy. And I think that's really important. We've created many relationships over the years with people who 20 years later will come and say, I was a student in your country. I will always remember going to the embassy. I remember being in university. I remember seeing the ship come into the port on a ship visit. Those are the relationships that you build that last. Can I tell you one quick story, 30 seconds?
Yeah. We've got 5 minutes, so take your
all
time.
right. Okay. So when I served in Indonesia, we had a number of ship visits in the area. You can imagine our Pacific Fleet is there. And at one of the islands in West Timor, we brought in our Mercy, what I call our Mercy hospital ship, to do a visit and to help, examine local people and provide some health care and just as an outreach.
Right.
And the governor of the province stood there watching the ship came in, and he started to cry. And he was an elderly gentleman. And I said, "Sir, are you okay?" And he says, "The last time I saw an American ship come in this port was at the end of World War II,
Wow.
where we were starving, and you brought us food and you brought us supplies."
This was how many years ago?
This was 60 years later.
Wow.
Right? He remembers that. That's what he remembers as a kid. And so to be able to still be that country that is coming in friendship and assistance and having a partnership really made an impression on me as well. And it just reaffirmed to me that that is the face of America that I need to present and that every day I need to represent, whether I'm in Indonesia or I'm in Nigeria. So I really welcome the challenge here to be that diplomat every day that presents the best face of the United States for our Nigerian colleagues.
And on that note, thank you so much, Claire, for joining us on Hard Facts on Nigeria Info Lagos.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And be
Gron.
back. I'm going to make you come back on the glass ceiling. You have
pleasure.
to come back as a
My
glass pusher.
Grand merci beaucoup. Huh?
All right, you stay right here. Eyewitness continues. We want to hear what's happening in your part of Lagos. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
And I'm Aghogho.
Hard Facts will be right back.